The body is the prison of the soul, and death is the release from this prison. The physical body is only a temporary shell of the soul. This quote belongs to Raymond Moody, the man who shocked the whole world with his sensational book called Life After Death. He was able to give people hope that our earthly life is not the end. But who is he, and what secret has he discovered through his research? Raymond Moody is a name that is associated with one of the deepest and most mysterious questions troubling humanity. What happens to us after death? But before becoming a researcher in the study of near-death experiences, he was an ordinary person with an unusual mind and a thirst for knowledge. Born in 1944, Moody was interested in philosophy from an early age, striving to find answers to questions about the meaning of life and human nature. His love of thinking about eternal truths led him to study ancient philosophy, which in turn laid the foundation for his future research. After receiving his PhD, Moody did not stop there. His curiosity and desire to combine humanitarian knowledge with science pushed him to get a medical education. It was here that the first encounter with the unknown took place. Studying patients who had experienced clinical death, he began to notice strange and surprising patterns in their stories. Moody's interest in the topic of death began with surprise. While working in the medical field, he repeatedly came across the stories of patients who said they saw a light, a tunnel, heard a voice, or met with departed loved ones. These stories might have remained just coincidences if there hadn't been so many of them, and if they hadn't sounded so convincing. In 1965, a fateful meeting took place. Moody heard the story of psychiatry professor George Ritchie, who had a near-death experience after clinical death. The story was so detailed and filled with deep personal meanings that Moody realized that there was more to these events than just brain hallucinations. From that moment on, his life changed. Inspired by his personal interest and endless thirst for knowledge, he decided to study this phenomenon from a scientific point of view, while remaining open to spiritual and philosophical interpretations. Raymond Moody approached the study of near-death experiences from two sides. As a doctor, he sought evidence, and as a philosopher, he sought to comprehend their meaning. This allowed him to become a unique figure in science and literature. He not only collected hundreds of stories of people who survived clinical death, but also systematized them, revealing common features that cannot be explained only by biology. But why did Moody write Life After Death? The answer is simple. He wanted to share his discoveries to open humanity's eyes to the fact that death may not be the end but the beginning. His book became not just a study, but a call to reflection on what we really know about the world and our role in it. Raymond Moody is a man who is not afraid to look beyond the unknown. His combination of medical expertise, philosophical wisdom, and human empathy have made his books a symbol of hope and a source of inspiration for millions of people around the world. When Raymond Moody's book, Life After Death, was published in 1975, it immediately became a sensation. It was not just a work on the medical or spiritual aspects of death. It was a challenge to everything that was considered known about the boundary between life and death. While conversations about death were usually surrounded by silence or fear, Moody dared to open this forbidden door. Moody's main innovation was the introduction of the concept of near-death experience. For the first time, he collected hundreds of testimonies from people who had experienced clinical death and systematized them. His research has shown that the stories of different people, regardless of their age, culture, or religion, have common elements. The feeling of leaving the body, travel through the tunnel to the bright light, meetings with long-gone loved ones, a feeling of love and tranquility that transcends the earthly experience. Before Moody, such stories were either ignored or explained as hallucinations caused by the stress of a dying brain. But he went further, suggesting that these experiences could be something much bigger. Many readers admitted that after Moody's book, they were no longer afraid of death. And this is not surprising, because the reality that the author describes destroys the traditional idea of it as an endpoint. For example, the book mentions a story about a patient who watched his operation from the outside, telling in detail about the actions of doctors, which he could not see in any way due to the state of clinical death. These details were confirmed by the surgeons involved in the operation. In his book, there are stories about the so-called panoramic overview of life, where in seconds a person experiences his key moments of life, and this makes one think about the nature of time and consciousness. Also, many people described an incredible feeling of unity with the world and universal wisdom, which cannot be expressed in words. And after such an experience, their consciousness and understanding of the world was no longer the same. Moody emphasized that such stories cannot be attributed solely to the biological processes of a dying brain. He called for studying them as a phenomenon that can reveal not only the nature of death, but also the depth of human consciousness. I want to tell you about 3 amazing cases described by Raymond Moody that give you goosebumps. The light at the end of the tunnel. A story that makes you believe in the existence of something more. One of the most famous and recurring themes in near-death experiences is the bright light at the end of the tunnel. Moody's book describes the story of a woman named Sarah who suffered a clinical death after a severe operation. Sarah remembers how she suddenly realized that she had left her body. She saw her motionless body on the operating table and the doctors frantically trying to save her. But surprisingly, instead of fear, she felt incredible relief and peace. At that moment, she noticed a tunnel into which she seemed to be being gently pulled. There was an incredibly bright, but not blinding light at its end. This light was warm, enveloping, as if it was calling her to him. She described him as something alive, full of love and acceptance. Sarah said that this moment changed her forever. Despite returning to her body, she was no longer afraid of death, because she knew that something beautiful was waiting for her beyond the border of life. Sarah's story is not just a testimony, but a kind of message that death may not be the end, but the beginning of something new. Meeting with departed loved ones. Another amazing phenomenon described in the book is meeting with loved ones who have already passed away. One of the most touching stories belongs to a man named Thomas, who suffered a cardiac arrest. In a state of clinical death, he found himself in a place that he described as a garden. His father, who died 20 years ago, met him here. Thomas was surprised to realize that his father looked young, as in his prime, and shone with some kind of inner energy. His father didn't say anything in words, but Thomas understood him without words. They communicated on the level of thoughts and feelings. His father reassured him, saying that his time had not yet come, and that he had to return to fulfill his mission. Thomas admitted that this experience changed his whole life. He felt closer to his father than ever and realized that love really knows no boundaries, even death. Return after clinical death, a story after which death ceases to be the end. Jane's story is one of the most famous in the book, as it includes an amazing memory of life. Jane suffered a cardiac arrest during a car accident. When her heart stopped, she felt her consciousness leaving her body. She described how her whole life had flown before her eyes, like on a movie. Jane recalled not only bright moments, but even small details that she had long forgotten. Her daughter's first word, the smell of her grandmother's house, touching moments that previously seemed insignificant. She was particularly impressed by the fact that she saw her life not only with her own eyes, but also with the eyes of other people. She felt the emotions of those she interacted with, understood their pain or joy. This experience made Jane realize how important every action, every emotion that we give to others is. When she was resuscitated, she came back to life with a strong desire to change. She gave up her previous career and devoted herself to helping others, claiming that her experience was not accidental, but a kind of lesson or warning. These 3 stories from Raymond Moody's book have one thing in common. They make you think about the nature of death, consciousness, and our connection to something bigger. Each of them is not just a story, but a deep experience that changes the outlook on life. Death is just a new round of the journey. Dear friends, do you believe that another life awaits us after death? Or maybe you had some mystical experience that you would like to share with others? Write in the comments. Dear friends, thank you for watching my video to the end. If you liked it, please like it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's very important. Thank you, and have a nice day.